Alright, so today I am finishing up the doors for the paint bay. Okay. And now this cutout here is part of the bat emblem. So even though this piece is for this other door that will close, since I want them to line up evenly, I have used hot glue to hold this in place. Then I can just use my heat gun to melt the glue and take it off when I'm done. But this way it gives me a reference as I put together the final door so that they will mesh together. Okay, so I've just glued the bottom piece, and I am using just masking tape to hold it in place till it dries. I sanded it and so that they sit, so that it sits evenly. And I'm going to do the same here to the top. As you can see, I have some gaps that I'm going to need to sand down so that it fits smoothly. Let's see which piece actually belongs on here. Okay. Yeah, that looks like it. Lucky, go away. Alrighty. So it looks like I need to sand this part down. When working with wood, expect that you will be doing a lot of sanding. And what we want to do is make sure that that corner there are on the same level so that the piece will sit squarely on there. Okay. Again, see how close we are. Just a little bit more. Now, if you have, like the corner of this side here has been rounded a little, so they're not exactly lined up, but that's okay. Because once we glue this all together, we can go back over it with some wood putty and fill in the tiny imperfections and then paint it. So right now I just want it to be level with that side piece. We don't want to go too far down, so I keep checking it with the piece to see how close I am. don't want to apply a lot of pressure, especially when you are sanding very thin wood. You don't want to warp it, and I certainly don't want to break any of the seams that have already been glued. That thing is not going down that easily here. Let's see here. Let's get a little higher grain sandpaper. See if we can't, or I should say lower grain. This is a 100 grain. Since we want to shave it down and not necessarily smooth it, we're going to use a rougher sandpaper. Yeah, that's looking better. About a millimeter or two, looks like about 2 millimeters left to go. Okay, that is almost there. Okay, but I got a little bump here. So I'm using a file to kind of level it out a little bit. See how that looks. Nice. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. It looks like the part over here. file gives me a little finer control. There we go. Oh, that looks good. Alrighty. So I'm looking for spots that are something on there. See if we can't. I don't know if you can see, but what we kind of want here is for that seam to be fairly flush with each other. And then the same for the back side. And of course this side. So I can see right there that I have a little bump kind of sticking up. The wood, so we're going to get rid of that. I think it's just some leftover glue from when I did this wrong the first time. Okay. Okay. Alrighty, that looks good. Okay. Well, that looks pretty good all the way around now. So let's add some wood glue. Oh, take the cap off. Don't want to pour gobs of it on, but you want enough there so that you get a good hold. And you kind of want it to be uniformed. And you don't want to drop the lid. All right. Alright, now then, take like so. Is that the right one or is it this one? I think it's this one. Yeah. Sorry, I grabbed the wrong one. There. Okay, add a little more glue. Now then, I'll leave this to set overnight to make sure that it is completely dry and solid before I start filling stuff in. So we're going to set that aside. This is the second part of that door, and it's already been glued together except that piece that has the bat symbol etched into it or cut out of it. And I'm going to wait till that's done and then fit them together because I want the doors to be flush. And of course, each door inside is going to have storage areas for paintbrushes, paint, various other supplies, and it will open out. And I trifold on each side, give me access to everything that I need. So, for now, I'm going to keep this together. And put it over here. Now for the sanding, you can buy sanding blocks to put sand on. This is just a piece of wood that I cut out. And this is actually to my Orbiter sander. I have tons of these. So why spend more money on using or getting rectangular or square pieces of sandpaper with the same grids when I can just do this. So, okay, so that's it for the painting at this point. Let's take a look at the doors that I've done. That will be painted. So now, here's half of the bat symbol. And what I'm going to be doing with this is that I'm going to be using resin to fill it in. And then behind it will be LED lighting. So this will be one of the lighting effects that I'm going to create. And as you can see here, there are hinges so that it opens out. And then what I've done is I've temporarily screwed in a piece of wood on the top and bottom and have left it for a few days to allow the wood to de-warp and to kind of stay together. So let's take those out and see how it looks. Particularly when you're using wood this wood's only 3 millimeters thick. It's gonna twist and warp with your sanding and handling and manipulating it. And so we want to get it back to where we started. And as you can see, it's looking good. There's a little bit of sanding I'll need to do. Give it a little more flush look. Take this side here. And again, any holes that you end up putting in the wood, you can just use some wood putty to get rid of it before you paint it. So, once the internal supports and shelving and whatnot that I'm going to be putting inside these doors is all installed, It's going to help give it structure, keep it from warping and becoming misaligned. Okay, but as you can see, by doing that for a couple days, we have a rather smooth seam here. Pieces are lining up lovely, and this is how it will open and close. Okay, so you can see so I can bring it closer here. You can see kind of still the play that's in here, but again, that'll be lessened once the internal structures that I'm making will be fitted in here, because you'll have pieces across here. They'll fit in the exact internal sides here, and we'll add some little blocks at the corners in the back here, which will all help with the strength. Okay. So I'm actually happy with that came out. So what I will do next for this piece is go ahead and fill in some of these holes, sand the edges, get some of the excess glue cleaned off. And then right now the wood is rather rough, so we'll use some sandpaper that's fine to kind of smoothen it out. Then I will paint it, and then I will seal it with a gloss coat, probably a couple coats to prevent scratches and stuff, because again, this is rather soft wood, so it would get dinged and marred quite easily. But if we put a barrier of kind of a polyurethane or other sealant on it, then that gives it a barrier and protects the wood. Okay. Now, okay, let's actually move this down here. Okay, so now what we have here is the main section. Okay. And ideally you wouldn't take like stuff like this on put last. But I had put this all together before, found out that the wood pieces were all messed up. They were not lining up. So, but that's fine. This can be unscrewed, painted, and then just put back on. What I've done on the inside here, across the top, these are actually aluminum rails. And there's one in the back, one in the front. And this is going to help give, this is the main area where you'd be painting in. And you have the bat emblem here, and then these holes, and the little holes around it, these are 4 small fans. They're called muffin fans or computer fans, little square fans, that will be installed behind it, and they will suck the paint fumes, and when using my airbrush, because it's atomizing the paint, it'll help keep that away from me, from breathing that in, even though I typically wear some sort of protective cover for my face, a respirator, depending on what I'm using. Now then, you see the bottom part's missing here, and that's because initially when I designed this, I was going to have all the electronics housed in a unit back here. what ended up happening as I assembled it is it was going to make the back of this back heavy, which means if you tap it, particularly with the doors open, it has a likely to fall backwards. So that design was not going to work successfully, so I had to change things up. Now instead of redoing all the wood here, as you can see, I've actually got rivets in here for the aluminum that's holding it together. But in the process of taking it apart, these sides got warped. So this is just pieces of wood that have been cut out and used to help keep the shape. And then again, when the base and the pieces are put inside here, the lighting and whatnot, it will help give us a frame or structure to keep it all stable. So the doors will actually attach here. So if we, let's see, put this here, let's take this, try not to handle it too much, mess it up, but these will attach here. And the reason why these are actually shorter than this is because of the base. The base is actually going to come up inside here a little bit, and this is going to be on that base. So it'll be attached up here, it'll be flush with the base underneath, and that'll give it some added support all the way around. Alrighty. Okay, and this is the actual base, or the floor of it. Now I've cut out some using the laser engraver cutter, some bat symbols, and what I can use these for is, and I have the negatives as well of where these were cut out, and I can use them as templates to spray paint different bat emblems of different sizes. And then even afterwards use some of these to give some added effect out. So you can see, you can play with them. I can play with them how I want. All right, in here, these are the fans I was talking about. And they're going to be installed in that back wall, and everything will be down here. Now what we're looking at, I'm going to take this stuff out for a moment. Okay. This is actually the bottom. And this part is going to be the top, or the up-facing part. And now, because this is housing the electronics, and it's got to hold the weight of everything, I have the aluminum rails running on all four sides, top and bottom. And then, so what we have for the top here, this is actually a molded resin. Let's see if we can't use this. There we go. So you can kind of see the bat emblem right through it. It's got a coffee dye into the resin, giving it kind of that brown dirt kind of feel. And then you probably can't see it on the film here, but or on the video here. But if you look closely, there's also black specks through it, giving it a feeling that you're looking at ground, even though it's clear. And then actually inside the resin is this bat symbol. Now, this does a couple things for me. One, it'll add to the illusion of when the paint bay is completed and painted and designed, it will actually look like you're looking inside the Batcave. But this is also gives me a very smooth surface, so the doors don't have anything to get caught on, but also paint has a hard time sticking to this. So it'll be easy for cleanup, and to keep it clean as you're painting, you can just wipe it off like a countertop, which is essentially what this material is. All the way around, it's got screws that are set flush into the resin. Now there's cleanup I've got to do around the corners. This is still looking rather rough, but you can see that the lip around it is actually also, it's a combination resin and wood, and this is done almost like a marble or a stone look to it. And this, again, we want this to really be really beefy because everything's going to be sitting on top of this. In addition, I have inside the resin, I have added these pillars that are in here, and when we do the base, there'll be some pillars on the base as well that will line up. And so any weight that's pushed on this, it's not going to allow it to bow. And so, and these are done up in what will be the front part of looking inside it. So this is where you'll actually be, you know, working and putting things down on and stuff. So I didn't want it over time to warp or get kind of a bowl to it. Okay, and then of course all the way around I've got to clean up the edges. So there's some sanding and filling that needs to be done. And then for that bottom piece, it is nuts and screws or bolts that are holding the resin piece in. But for the for the bottom, I want it'll just be a wood base, and I want it to be able to where you don't have to be inside of it to unscrew it with the nuts. Now I tried first gluing and epoxying nuts onto the aluminum. Didn't work out. Again, this is my first time making something like this. I'm learning along with you, and it was an utter disaster. You can see by the number of holes as I tried to redo things. So what I'm going to have to do is get a threaded insert, and so it will insert into these holes from the underside out, and it will be it'll have a kind of a lip around it, so it'll be held up. So when you're screwing in, it's actually inside. It's going to be going through the aluminum instead of just being glued on the back side. And that will then allow it to just screw in and out to remove the back piece. Should I have to work on any of the electronics that are going to be down here, or any of the lighting. What I've also done is I've used a bit of frosted glass finish on the inside piece. There's a light layer of it, and that will help diffuse the light of the LEDs a bit. And so I may have to do a second coat after I get the LEDs set up and see how they look. But the idea is we don't want to see each individual LED light. We want it to kind of all look like a string of lights. So that will help diffuse the light coming off. In addition, I've beefed up the corners with some metal brackets and screws. just to give it that much more support. Then what will be inside here are these little components, and I've already started assembling and testing them. And essentially what we have here is this is a power supply. So you have AC going in, and you'll have 24 volts coming out. Now I may actually trade this out for an external power supply that'll just plug in to the back wall, because I don't think I'm going to have enough space to install the plug, a regular AC plug, into the back. So I may be changing that out. What we have in here is this is just allows me to adjust the voltage. Because when you're working with DC voltage, the more items that you're running with it, it's going to draw more current, but it's also going to lower the voltage a little bit across the board, when you have multiple things. So that can create a problem when you're using, particularly when you're using relays or something, where it needs to be a certain voltage level to trip the relay. And if there's not enough voltage reaching it because it's being drawn out by all the lighting or by the motors that are going to be in here, then it won't work. So this allows me to dial it up and essentially get a little more power. So I've got 24 volts coming out, but my actual circuit and design is set at 12 volts. So I've got more voltage being brought in than I'm actually using. So this allows me to bump it up. I can go 13, 14 volts, 15 volts, whatever I need at this juncture, so that what's coming out over here is the right amount, or is enough to run everything. So just a little cheat. Then this component here is actually a power relay for battery power. Because what I plan to do is have this be portable, and so this is a battery charger and switch. So when the AC is plugged into it, it'll run on that, but it'll also charge the battery. And then when you unplug the AC, it will detect that low frequency and because now there's no voltage going in, it will then trip the relay over to the battery, and the battery will now become the power supply. So, and it's important when you are figuring all this stuff out is to get something that's going to be large enough to handle the load. This is a 25,000 mAh, 24 volt battery. Again, I'm setting the power coming in that's being used to be much higher, twice what I'm planning my circuit to use, and this will prevent me from having any issues with not enough power to drive things. So I got this nice hefty battery here, which will, for basically the motors, I've added up the amperage that it's taking across it, the same with the LEDs, and made sure that each of these components that I got will handle the load. Because if you undersize your power system, then by the time the voltage gets to those batteries of those LEDs, they'll be very weak, or it'll move very slowly, if at all. So it's always good to think bigger than what you actually need. Okay, so this control battery, and then here, this unit here is actually a power distribution for multiple voltages. Okay, so across these, This has an output of 3 volts, 3.3 volts, 5 volts, 12 volts, and an adjustable one, which this little potentiometer here, this little screw here, will let me adjust it. And what this does for me is that some of the components that I'll be using, for instance, I plan to have a display in here, and the display only works on a 5 volt. So having 12 volts everywhere, I'd have to do some sort of step down for that display. Also, for some of the lighting is going to be at 5 volts, while other lighting is going to be at 12 volts. So obviously the lighting that I'm going to be using to see and work with, I want it to be much brighter, but the lighting to kind of backlight the doors and to give kind of all the effects, well, I don't need it to be super bright, so nice 5 volt LEDs will work just fine. And that again helps save, because we won't have a lot of heat and dissipation from using a whole lot of higher power items. And we'll also, in addition to keeping things cool, gives me more voltage to use for the motors, which are going to obviously be drawing the most current, because they will be doing a physical action, moving mechanical pieces. So in here, it's already all split out, and I can just run the wiring to the different ones that I need for power. The 3.3 volt can be used to trip switches, such as relays, and if I need it for anything else. Okay, so coming off of here, we then have 2 types of banks of relays. Okay, so you could do all this with programming in a computer, like an Arduino, a unit, or something like that, but you need to know how to program. I don't. I'm not familiar with that area as of yet, so I'm going old school with the design, where it's basically using analog circuitry instead of computer controls. And so the way it was done in the old days is you basically had relays. And a relay is simply you have a center pin for power going in, and then if the relay switches to one side, the power goes to that side. If it switches to the other side, it goes to the other side, and to that other wire. And then to trip these or turn these relays on and off, we have some circuitry here that's built into this that detects a signal, which can be a 3 volt, some of them I think are 3 volts up to, I think this one actually can handle up to 12 volts for a signal. I'll be running 6 volts I think for this one, and for the smaller one 5 volts should be enough to trip it and be comfortable. So what will happen is, and we'll see this later on when I set up the motors, because the motors have to go in 2 different directions, they will actually be controlled by relays and by contact switches. So as a contact switch is hit, it's going to send a signal or a voltage to a pin on here, which will change the relay configuration, and that will stop the motor and will reverse the motor for the next one it's closing. So by doing that, I don't have to program. It is a little complex how you have to figure out and lay out your circuit in advance, and I'll show that when I actually start wiring. I'll show you how I have it laid out and how it works. So that's all for this round. Thank you for joining.